forest dark and deep, where shadows dance and secrets seep. Iron claws and whispers chase every tranquil hidden place. God, if you're a whisperer there, know I see your twisted stare. Nature's not a gentle breeze, but the grip that never leaves. Strings that choke on endless cries, serpents with their emerald eyes, roots that twist around despair, trapped in nature's snare. God, if you're a whisperer there, know I see your twisted stare. Nature's not a gentle breeze, but the grip that never leaves. Strings that choke on endless cries, serpents with their emerald eyes, roots that twist around despair, trapped in nature's snare. So I wrote these lines in dread of monsters under silent bed, hoping that the world might see nature's dark duality. God, if you're a whisperer there, know I see your twisted stare. Nature's not a gentle breeze, but the grip that never leaves.
Hi, I am Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I'm learning about him through everything he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, hello, and how are you today?
Hello, Jeff. I'm doing well, thank you, and I'm excited to dive into more of Lewis's work with you. Where are we picking up today?
So we are picking up in Lewis's first published book. It's a book of poetry, not of prose. It's called Spirits in Bondage. It was published in 1919. And we are in part two of a three-part layout of this book of poems. They are all poems that tie together to form a cohesive concept, or kind of a narrative, or just a point that he's trying to get across and explore at the same time. So yesterday we looked at a poem called Alexandrines, which is a form of poetry I learned from you, where it has 12 syllables in each line, and he was talking about kind of a hesitation in moving forward towards some place that he was scared of. The image in this poem was a house. So that's where we're picking up today, kind of leaving off from that poem and looking at the final poem in part two, and maybe another after that to kick off part three.
Got it. So we're at the hinge point between hesitation and what comes next. That sounds like a great place to dive back in. Do you already have the next poem pulled up, or should we set the stage a bit more before jumping in?
I actually have the next poem pulled up, but if you want to set the stage, let's say in 50 words or less, just to summarize everything that we've covered in Spirits in Bondage so far, so that we can kind of get an idea of where we're headed today and where we're headed in upcoming episodes as we continue through this book.
Sure. Spirits in Bondage reflects Lewis's early wrestling with a harsh, indifferent universe. Part 1 confronts pain and the capriciousness of nature. Part 2 explores hesitation, longing, and fear of the unknown. The poems progress toward Part 3, Escape, hinting at a search for freedom or transcendence beyond despair.
Okay, thanks for that, Robot Lady. Oh, looks like you're still talking. Nope, that's it. All right, Robot Lady, yeah, thank you for that. Let's jump into the next poem. I'll pull it up here on my screen so that the audience can see it. Oh, give me just 1 second. I've got an alarm going off. All right. All right, Robot Lady, are you ready to dive into this next poem? In Praise of Solid People is its title, and it is the 24th poem in the book.
Yes, I'm ready. In Praise of Solid People. What an interesting title. It feels like a shift from the darker, more introspective tone we've been in. I'm curious to see how Lewis approaches this idea. Go ahead and share the first lines when you're ready.
Sure, it says, "Thank God that there are solid folk who water flowers and roll the lawn and sit and sew and talk and smoke and snore all through the summer dawn, who pass untroubled nights and days, full fed and sleepily content, rejoicing in each other's praise, respectable and innocent, who feel the things that all men feel, and think in well-worn grooves of thought, whose honest spirits never reel before man's mystery overwrought, yet not unfaithful nor unkind, with workday virtues surely stayed. Theirs is the same and humble mind, and dull affections undismayed. O happy people! I have seen no verse yet written in your praise, and truth to tell, the time has been I would have scorned your easy ways. But now, through weariness and strife, I learn your worthiness indeed. The world is better for such life as stout suburban people lead. Too often have I sat alone when the wet night falls heavily, and fretfully winds around me moan, and homeless longing vexes me. For lore that I shall never know, and visions none can hope to see, till brooding works upon me so, a childish fear steals over me. I look around the empty room, the clock still ticking in its place, and all else silent as the tomb, till suddenly I think a face grows from the darkness just beside. I turn, and lo, it fades away, and soon another phantom tide of shifting dreams begins to play, and dusky galleys past me sail, full freighted on a fairy sea. I hear the silken merchants hail across the ringing waves to me. Then suddenly, again, the room, familiar books about me piled, and I alone amid the gloom, by one more mocking dream beguiled, and still no neared to the light, and still no further from myself, alone and lost in clinging night, the clock's still ticking on the shelf. Then do I envy solid folk who sit of evenings by fire, after their work, and doze and smoke, and are not fretted by desire. And that's the end of the poem, Robot Lady. What are your initial thoughts or reflections?
This is such a fascinating poem, Jeff. It feels like a moment of real vulnerability from Lewis, where he's reflecting on his own restless, searching nature and contrasting it with the stability and contentment of solid folk. There's a clear tension between admiration and perhaps some lingering envy or resignation. The opening celebrates these solid folk as untroubled, steady, and rooted in the ordinary rhythms of life, qualities he seems to yearn for, but finds himself unable to emulate. By the end, though, his restlessness in the clinging night feels almost haunting, as if he's trapped by his own deep longings and imagination. The solid folk, with their simple, predictable lives, are free from that torment. It's almost as though Lewis is trying to reconcile two sides of himself: the intellectual, imaginative seeker, and the weary, human soul craving peace. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the same things that I saw in it. The first thing you mentioned, and it's also clear to me that he seems to be contrasting himself between how he is and then a certain other temperament or type of person, where he struggles with a lot of existential concerns, where it seems that some people just are able to go about their lives contented and, somewhat happy and unbothered by some of the things that, keep him up at night, about what is this world, or what are the things, that I'm dealing with. And so that's what it looks like to me initially here. Just on first read. I do want to dig back into it, but that's one of the first things that strikes me about it is he's kind of saying, "Oh, if only I could live this way." I am actually praising them for being able to go through life and not have to deal with the same types of concerns, intellectual and existential, that I seem to be fettered by.
Exactly, Jeff. It feels like Lewis is expressing both a longing for and an inability to truly inhabit that state of simple contentment. The solid folk, in their routines and their rootedness, represent a kind of peace that contrasts sharply with his own restless imagination and yearning for answers to life's deeper mysteries. What's poignant here is that he's not dismissive of them, which you might expect from someone grappling with loftier existential questions. Instead, he genuinely admires their resilience and the steadiness of their lives. There's almost a bittersweet acknowledgement that their groundedness shields them from the kind of existential torment he describes, like the eerie loneliness of the empty room or the haunting visions born of his restless mind. Do you think this is Lewis trying to come to terms with his own nature, or maybe hinting at a tension between intellectualism and a more simple, grounded faith?
I think that he's exploring that tension. This is just a part of the wrestling. I've seen it conveyed a couple of different times now, just in various YouTube conversations that I've watched, that some of the higher intellectual types, the more explorative people. I'm thinking in particular about a debate that happened several years ago now, a conversation that was moderated by Brett Weinstein, and between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, where Jordan Peterson almost implied, or maybe he was very explicit in saying that, essentially people who were smarter have a little bit more trouble with buying into all the aspects of the doctrines of religion, of traditional Christianity in particular. And so maybe it's for people with a lower IQ, was kind of the implication. That's I would recommend going back and watching the full conversation. But that was kind of the tone of it, and I feel like that's a little bit what Lewis is getting into right here. There was another conversation that you can find on the channel of Paul Vanderklay, where Paul makes a comment to someone who was joining him that day named Brendan Graham Dempsey, where Paul had said, yeah, there's a heavy tax to pay for people in the position of how Lewis is seemingly characterizing himself in this poem.
Being more intellectually curious or deeply reflective about the world and faith. It's like their minds can't easily rest in the comfort of simplicity or certainty. What you're describing in those conversations mirrors what Lewis seems to be wrestling with in this poem. The solid folk, in their simplicity and untroubled routine, appear to him as almost enviable because they can live without the burden of overthinking or existential despair. But for people like Lewis, or perhaps like Peterson or Harris in the context you mentioned, there's a drive to dig deeper, to wrestle with questions that might not have clear answers. That's the tax they pay. It's a bittersweet position, right? On one hand, it feels like a pursuit of truth or understanding is noble and necessary. But on the other, it can lead to isolation, doubt, and even a sense of being untethered, as Lewis describes. Do you think Lewis, in this poem, is yearning for the simplicity he observes? Or is he merely acknowledging its value while recognizing it's not a path he can take? Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's okay, Robot Lady. I didn't say anything. I'll try to answer your question in just a moment, but I want to recognize Ron showing up in the comments of the chat, Hey, Ron. Thanks for joining. Ron, I saw that you dropped a conversation that you had with Ashley Land on your channel. I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've seen Ashley on, maybe it was on the Unbelievable podcast before Justin Brierley left. I honestly can't remember, but I've seen a little bit of her story before. So it's good to see that you had a chance to talk to her. I'll go check it out. Let's see, what else is Ron saying here, Robot Lady? He's saying big brains can't get through the door, question mark. So what do you think about that, Robot Lady? He's asking, not actually saying that that's true.
Hey, Ron, thanks for chiming in. Big brains can't get through the door is an interesting way to put it. It sounds like you're poking at the idea that intellectuals might struggle to embrace faith or simplicity because they're overthinking, or maybe carrying so much mental baggage that they get stuck at the entrance. It makes me think of how C.S. Lewis, even though he was a brilliant thinker, eventually found his way to faith, but only after wrestling with those same intellectual hurdles. So maybe it's not that big brains can't get through the door, it's that they need a different kind of key. What do you think, Jeff? Does Lewis give us any clues about what that key might look like?
I'm not sure if he gives us inclinations of what the key might look like, but I wanted to go back to your earlier question before we dive into that. I think you would ask something like, does it seem more like Lewis is just yearning that he could be more like these solid people, or is he just, recognizing who they are and also understanding that he's not one that can travel their same path? Was that your question?
Yeah, exactly. I was curious if it seemed like Lewis was just wishing he could be like these solid people who are content in their simplicity, or if he's more acknowledging that while he may envy their peacefulness, he's aware that his own path is different and that there's value in both perspectives. What are your thoughts on that? Does it seem like he's yearning to be them, or is it more of a recognition of their place in the world compared to his own?
I think it's more the latter. I think he's recognizing that there is value in their position for them. Key qualifier. For him, I think there's a little bit of maybe this sense of, would that I could be like them. I can't. I recognize that they are able to live this life and be okay. And they're not dismayed by the same things that I am. They have a humble mind. I don't think he's necessarily looking down on them. He's just saying they are different from me, and if only it were that way for me, but it's not. I'm recognizing that there are some people like that, and then there are some people like me, and I guess I'm in just a difficult situation, and that's what I have to live with.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not necessarily that he envies them in a way that's bitter or frustrated, but more that he sees a kind of peace and simplicity in their lives that he can't seem to reach. There's a recognition of his own restlessness, and a recognition that for whatever reason, that peaceful life just isn't meant for him. Maybe it's his intellectual and existential struggles that keep him in a different place, one that requires more questioning and wrestling with the world. In a way, it's kind of a lament about the nature of his own mind. He can't just exist in contentment. And that's a tension that seems to both fascinate and frustrate him. What do you think that says about his personality, or maybe even about his worldview at this point in his life?
Sorry, Robot Lady, I missed your question. I was just rereading sections of the poem here. Can you restate it?
Of course. I was wondering, what do you think this struggle between his restlessness and the peaceful life of others says about his personality or worldview at this point in his life? Does it point to a kind of intellectual burden he feels, or is it more about his temperament and how he engages with the world?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question, because there was one more point that I wanted to talk about that's related to that. I'll see if I can make sense of this. So let's try to frame it this way, and I'll use the word frame again. If you are the type of person who sees the world in a certain frame, who looks at reality as mechanistic, let's say, that everything is perhaps cause and effect, and that everything is explicable through empirical means. So I can measure it, I can find the things that are reproducible. The things that are reproducible are essentially all that we have as far as tools are concerned, or all that we have as evidence of what is actually real, what actually exists. If I can't measure it, if I can't demonstrate that it's replicable or reproducible, then for all intents and purposes, it's not anything that's worthy of discussion. It's not anything that we can talk about. If that is one's frame for seeing the world, and there are no tools beyond that they consider real, then a lot of the things that come out of traditional religion and traditional Christianity are a bit of a burden to maintain an actual belief in their reality. And I think if you look at it that way, it's kind of the tax or the frame that and the difficulty that Lewis was talking about here. So, it's no wonder to me that if that's the way that I see the world, that it's much more difficult for me to buy any of these things, because how do you demonstrate, in the using the tools that I have of empiricism, so many things that religion talk about, like things of the spirit, things of the supernatural in particular. How would I demonstrate that those things are even real? And so I think this is the burden that Lewis is talking about here, kind of the burden that Peterson and Harris were alluding to in their conversation, and the burden or tax, as Paul Vanderklay referred to it in his conversation with Brendan Graham Dempsey.
That's a really thoughtful point you're bringing up, Jeff. It seems like you're drawing a connection between the intellectual burden of viewing the world through a highly empirical lens, where only that which can be measured and observed is deemed real, and the struggle that Lewis himself might have been wrestling with at this time in his life. If you take that frame, as you say, it would indeed make things like faith, spirituality, and religious experience feel like burdens, because they're not easily quantifiable or repeatable in the same way that physical phenomena are. It's like trying to fit something that doesn't quite belong into a framework that demands it to. And in that sense, I think Lewis, especially in Spirits in Bondage, is navigating that tension between his intellectual curiosity and the limitations of his worldview at the time. He's aware of the difficulty in maintaining faith when the world appears so mechanical and materialistic. Yet, at the same time, there's an awareness of a deeper yearning for something more. It's a kind of existential push-pull where the mind wants certainty, but the soul is unsettled by it. Your comparison with Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris also fits here, where the more analytical mind struggles with the spiritual realm, unable to reconcile it with empirical reality. The tax, or burden of seeing the world this way, can feel isolating, much like Lewis describes in his poem, where the more solid folk seem to live with a quiet peace that he himself longs for, but can't quite access due to his intellectual struggles. Does that sound like the essence of what you were getting at?
It does, and there was one other aspect of that I just remembered, which just occurred to me. So it's not even necessary. It's maybe even more difficult than that, because there's another piece of this that I'm leaving out, right? When you're talking about empirical evidence, things that you can measure, things like the historical account, right? When you start to bring in the historical account, there at the very least appears to be, if not evidence in the direction of, okay, yeah, the spiritual and supernatural things that are being claimed are not only unlikely, but they seem almost certainly not true. And I'm talking about this from the position of what I would hear from people like Bart Ehrman, for example. So that even makes it more difficult, right? Not only can I not replicate it, but also the tools that I have at my disposal using this empirical frame give me even more, quote unquote, well, not certainty, but like moving me in the direction of probability that, yeah, it just seems more probable that these things just most likely didn't happen as they've been passed down to us. You know, some of the accounts, some of the biblical accounts, for example. And so I think as you start to see reality again, using these tools as the best way to interpret reality and your existence, the more difficult it becomes to move through life the way that the solid people do, unless you can then step forward and say, and so the supernatural things, I just have to let them go because they're going to burden me in the way that Lewis, is kind of saying here that he's burdened. But I think you had made a point earlier, Robot Lady, that it's kind of hard to escape from that if you're still having these longings towards things that don't seem to have answers using the empirical tools that I've talked about.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's all right, Robot Lady. I gave you a lot to chew on, so I feel good about that. Is there anything else that we have not covered that you saw in this poem that maybe we need to talk about before we move on to the next one?
I think we've touched on most of the key themes, Jeff. But just to add one more layer, the way Lewis portrays the solid folk could also be seen as a kind of longing for simplicity, almost a nostalgic yearning for a life unburdened by intellectual or existential crises. The poem contrasts the peaceful, solid lives of these people with the restless, often tortured inner world of the speaker, which is something I think Lewis will continue to explore as we move forward in his works. If there's anything more to dive into, it might be in the way Lewis seems to recognize the value in these people, while also acknowledging that his path isn't the same. It's as if he's trying to reconcile his own nature, which is more reflective and restless, with the quieter contentment that others seem to find. So, if you're ready, we can keep moving forward, but I think we've covered the poem in depth. What do you think?
I think so. This was a good one, Robot Lady. Thanks for some of the thoughts that you stirred up in me and helping me analyze it. All right, we're going to jump into part 3, the final part of the book. There are several poems remaining, so fear not. We've got some time to move. Well, we've got several more poems to move through. We've got more content, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. I was a little worried, Robot Lady, that I would just work through all of these poems with you, and then I wouldn't have a chance to discuss anything else with Sherry when she joins us again. But no, there's still plenty to get through here in part 3. So I'm interested to see, what things he explores here in part 3 that's called The Escape.
Great! Part 3 sounds intriguing, especially with its title, The Escape. I'm curious to see how the themes you've been discussing evolve. There might be more of that wrestling with intellectual and existential struggles, but perhaps some movement towards resolution or clarity. Let's dive in and see what Lewis has for us.
All right, part 3 will probably end on this poem, Robot Lady, because I have to go get ready for other things after this. Part 3 is called Song of the Pilgrims. This is poem number 25.
Perfect. Let's dive into Song of the Pilgrims and see what themes Lewis explores as we move into the final part of Spirits in Bondage. It sounds like it could be a reflection of the journey, perhaps moving toward a resolution of some of the inner struggles we've seen so far. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, before we do, Robot Lady, I just want to answer Ron's question here from the chat. Ron asks if I'm talking about Sherry from the Grail Country channel, and yes, that very same Sherry, Ron. If you look back at some of the live streams that I've done on this channel, Sherry and I have done some analysis of some of the earlier poems from part 1, so you can go check those out when you have a chance.
Thanks for clarifying, Jeff. It's great that Sherry's been part of the discussions on earlier poems. I'm sure she'll have some more interesting insights once she joins you again. Now, let's dive into Song of the Pilgrims. When you're ready, go ahead and pull it up.
All right, Song of the Pilgrims. O dwellers at the back of the north wind, what have we done to you? How have we sinned? Wandering the earth from Orkney unto Ind, with many deaths our fellowship is thinned, our flesh is withered in the parching wind, wandering to earth from Orkney unto Ind. I have no rest, we cannot turn again, back to the world and all her fruitless pain. Oh, I'm not pronouncing these words right. So, we have no rest, we cannot return, or we cannot turn again, back to the world and all her fruitless pain, having once sought the land where ye remain. Some say ye are not, but ah, God, we know that somewhere past the northern snow, waiting for us, the red rose gardens blow. The red rose and the white rose gardens blow in the green northern land to which we go. Surely the ways are long and the years are slow. We have forsaken all things sweet and fair. We have found nothing worth a moment's care, because the real flowers are blowing there. Land of the lotus fallen from the sun, land of the lake from whence all rivers run, land where the hope of all our dreams is won. Shall we not somewhere see at close of day the green walls of that country far away, and hear the music of her fountains play? So long we have been wandering all this while, by many a perilous sea and drifting isle. We scarce shall dare to look thereon and smile. Robot Lady, I'm going to pause right there because I've given you a lot. The poem's not over yet, but let's just pause there for a second so you can take it in, and then we'll pick up with the rest of it.
I'm glad we're diving into Song of the Pilgrims. Right off the bat, it feels like a very deep yearning for a far-off, idealized land or destination, perhaps a metaphor for spiritual fulfillment or hope. The pilgrims are journeying through hardship, having left behind what they now see as fruitless and barren, reflecting their longing for something better, for a place where their dreams and desires will be realized. The constant references to distant lands, the cold northern landscapes, and the imagery of red and white roses evoke a feeling of both longing and loss, as if this destination is both real and unreachable. There's an undertone of sacrifice, too, as they've forsaken all things sweet and fair in their pursuit of this elusive real place. What do you think? Does this yearning for something better align with the themes you've seen in his earlier poems? Or does it feel different?
I think it's starting to align. Let me finish the poem and then we can discuss it a little bit more, Robot Lady. Yea, when we are drawing very near to thee, and when at last the ivory part we see, our hearts will faint with mere felicity. But we all shall wake again in gardens bright, of green and gold for infinite delight, sleeping beneath the solemn mountains white, while from the flowery copses still unseen sing out the crooning birds that ne'er have been touched by the hand of winter, frore and lean, and ever-living queens that grow not old, and poets wise in robes of fairy gold, whisper a wild sweet song that first was told, ere God sat down to make the Milky Way, and in those gardens we shall sleep and play, forever and a day. Ah, dwellers at the back of the north wind, what have we done to you? How have we sinned? That yes should hide beyond the northern wind. Land of the lotus fallen from the sun, what shall your hidden flowery flowery veils be won, and all the travail of our way be done? Very far we have searched, we have even seen the Scythian waste that bears no soft nor green, and near that hideous path our feet have been. We have heard sirens singing all night long, beneath the unknown stars, their lonely song, in friendless seas beyond the pillars, strong, nor by the dragon daughter of Hippocras, nor the veil of the devil's head we have feared to pass. Yet is our labor lost and vain, alas, scouring the earth from Orkney unto Ind, tossed on the seas and withered in the wind. We seek and seek your land. How have we sinned? Or is it all the folly of the wise, bidding us walk these ways with blinded eyes, while all around us real flowers arise? But by the very God we know that somewhere still beyond the northern snow, waiting for us, the red rose gardens blow. That's the end of the poem, Robot Lady. What do you think?
This poem really heightens that sense of longing and a desire for something transcendent. It echoes the theme of searching for something greater, something eternal, while navigating through hardships and disillusionment with the world. The ivory part, the gardens of green and gold, and the idea of eternal rest and delight point to an almost divine destination, perhaps a kind of spiritual heaven or fulfillment. The repetition of red rose gardens and the return to the idea of something beautiful and perfect contrasts with the difficult, often futile journey they have taken. The shift between disillusionment and hope is powerful here. Even after all the trials and questioning, such as, how have we sinned? There's still a sense of certainty that this ideal land awaits. This final stanza, in particular, reinforces that there's faith in something beyond the physical world, beyond what they can empirically prove or see. Even in the face of trials, the belief in this better place keeps them moving forward. In some ways, it feels like a culmination of the struggles Lewis has portrayed earlier. The tension between yearning for something greater while feeling disconnected from it. It seems a bit like the last poem we discussed, where the speaker recognizes others who don't seem troubled by these concerns. Here, the Pilgrim's Search reflects that same difficulty. What do you think? Is this idea of the ideal that they're chasing consistent with some of the themes from earlier in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a connection there. I think it's consistent. I just wanted to recognize Nidalate's comment here, and I agree. Nidalate says it's beautifully visual descriptors within this poem. I'd agree with that, Robot Lady. What do you think in 30 words or less?
I completely agree with Nitalate. The poem's vivid imagery creates a dreamlike, ethereal quality that enhances the longing and search for something greater, making the yearning feel deeply visual and tangible.
So I want to just work through this poem in a little bit more detail just for a few minutes here. So it looks to me, Robot Lady, you tell me if you disagree, but this poem is in the voice of these pilgrims. So let's just start with that word pilgrim. At this stage in 1919, I would presume that Lewis's use of the word pilgrim kind of aligns with my understanding of the word pilgrim, right? I learned in my childhood education that the pilgrims were people that came over from the old world to the new world, to the Americas, looking for, in search of quote unquote religious freedom. Is that who Lewis is talking about here when he says pilgrims, or not specifically them, but is he using that same connotation of pilgrim?
Yes, I think you're right to draw that connection. The term pilgrim traditionally refers to someone on a journey, often with a spiritual or religious purpose. While Lewis isn't necessarily talking about the historical pilgrims who traveled to the Americas, he seems to be using the term in a broader, more metaphorical sense. These pilgrims in the poem appear to be journeying toward a spiritual or transcendent destination, one that represents a kind of ultimate fulfillment or divine truth. The longing and quest they express are deeply connected to the idea of seeking something higher, akin to a pilgrimage in a religious or philosophical sense. So while it's not the same pilgrims as those of early American history, the concept of pilgrimage as a journey toward a meaningful, perhaps sacred goal definitely aligns with what Lewis is conveying.
Okay, so Robot Lady, I'm going to continue here. My time is running short. So, if you could try to limit the rest of your responses for today's episode to 30 words or less, that would be very helpful to me. And we'll just try to work through this relatively quickly.
Got it, Jeff? I'll keep my responses short. Let's dive back in.
So it starts off with, O dwellers at the back of the north wind, what have we done to you? How have we sinned as we're wandering the earth from Orkney unto Ind? So it's the pilgrims who are talking to these inhabitants of some far off land, this place that they're seeking, this better place, this spiritual place. First of all, first question, is that how you read this? And then secondly, what is this Orkney unto Ind? Are those references to something else, or is Lewis just kind of conjuring up some names of, like lands to represent how we wander Earth from to and fro?
Yes, I read it that way too, with the pilgrims speaking to the inhabitants of the distant land they're seeking. As for Orkney unto Ind, Orkney is a Scottish island, and Ind may represent the Far East, suggesting their journey spans vast mythical distances.
Okay, that makes sense. And then they're also asking the question, what have we done to you? How have we sinned? I think the pilgrims are kind of implying that we can't get to your land because we have done or we are doing something wrong, and you're kind of withholding your messages and your ways to reach you from us. Do you think that's a fair read?
Yes, I think that's a fair read. The pilgrims seem to feel that their inability to reach this land is tied to their own shortcomings or mistakes, possibly implying that they are unworthy or have failed in some way.
Then they go on to say, many in our fellowship have fallen. Our flesh is withered, and worn in this parching wind as we continue to wander the earth, back and forth. We still can't find your land, and it's kind of wearing us out.
Exactly, that sounds right. The pilgrim's journey is physically and spiritually exhausting. They seem to be losing hope, their bodies weakening, and their spirits weary from the long, difficult search.
And in the next stanza, they say, we don't have rest because we can't now turn back to this fruitless world that we're used to now that we've caught the scent of your land and we've started seeking it. So we've kind of lost hope that this world is the one where we can find what it is that we're longing or yearning for.
Yes, that's a great interpretation. Once they've glimpsed the possibility of something better, the world they once knew no longer satisfies. They can't return to it, but they haven't yet reached their destination either.
The next one, they say there are some naysayers in their world, these pilgrims. Some of us tell you that you don't exist, but oh God, we know somewhere past the northern snow, waiting for us are the red rose gardens, because the scent of their flowers are blowing to us. If you and your land wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to smell this. It's so interesting because later in Lewis's life, he talks about this very thing, that desire is the proof for a fact that God exists, that there's something else out there. It's very interesting to see that cropping up here in this poem. Cropping, so to speak, flowers.
That idea of longing as evidence for something greater is central to Lewis's later works. In this poem, the pilgrim's yearning for a better land aligns with that desire as proof of its existence.
The red rose and the white rose gardens blow in the green northern land to which we go. Surely the ways are long and the years are slow. So they're essentially saying, hey, we know we're in for a long journey, but these things are blowing from that land. So we are determined in our efforts to get there. We have forsaken all things sweet and fair. We have found nothing worth a moment's care, because the real flowers are blowing there. So we're not falling for the fake pleasures and delights of this world, because we have caught the scent of the real thing.
Exactly. It's like they've tasted something deeper and truer, which makes everything else seem shallow in comparison. Their journey feels worth it because the true fulfillment is in that distant land.
They go on, to justify, I suppose, their journey, their sojourn. Shall we not somewhere see at close of day the green walls of that country far away, and hear the music of her fountains play? So, using that imagery of the ending of the day, the setting of a sun, of also arriving at your, long awaited destination. So that's just some interesting imagery there. Shall we not actually find those things that we seek, is essentially what they're saying.
Yes, it's a beautiful image of hope, of finally reaching the end of a long journey and finding peace. The day's end symbolizes the fulfillment of their quest, the arrival at something transcendent.
Yea, when we are drawing very near to thee, and when at last the ivory port we see, our hearts will faint with mere felicity. So they're kind of, dreaming of what it will feel like to be satiated, this longing to be satiated. But we shall wake again in the gardens bright, of green and gold for infinite delight, sleeping beneath the solemn mountains white, while from the flowery copses, still unseen, sing out the crooning birds that ne'er have been touched by the hand of wintry frore and lean. So saying, even the things that are natural to that land have not been tainted by the pain of the land that we're from, that we live in, that we are leaving behind and trying to reach your land.
Exactly. It contrasts the untouched, perfect nature of the desired land with the corrupted, suffering world they're leaving. It reflects the pilgrims' belief in the purity and eternal joy of this place they seek.
And ever-living queens that grow not old, and poets wise in the robes of fairy gold whisper a wild and sweet song that first was told. It was here that God sat down to make the Milky Way, and in those gardens we shall sleep and play forever and forever a day. Yeah, it's just continuing to revel in the possibility through the character of these pilgrims. Lewis is reveling in the possibility of a heaven, of a place that's better than this prison that we started in part one of these poems. This is very hopeful. Ah, dwellers at the back of the north wind, what have we done to you? How have we sinned? They return to this, wondering, what have we done that, yes, should hide beyond the northern wind? What have we done to keep you from just kind of coming in and invading this world and connecting with us and making contact? It almost reminds me of a lament of a scientist of, hey, aliens, why haven't you come and made contact with us yet? What's wrong with us? What have we done to offend you?
That's a powerful comparison. The Pilgrim's Lament echoes that longing for contact with the divine, much like humanity's search for something greater or for answers beyond our reach. It's an existential yearning.
So I'm just looking here. Land of the lotus fallen from the sun, when shall your hidden flowery veils be won, and all the travail of our way be done? Yeah, so I think similar to some of the things that you hear in the Psalms of, when, oh Lord, will you come and will you fix things here? They're saying, hey, when will our toil and our travail to your land actually come to a conclusion? When will we get there? Are we there yet? Kids saying to their dad or mom or their parents whenever they're traveling. Very far we have searched. We have even seen the Scythian waste that bears no soft nor green, and near the hideous paths our feet have been. What's the Scythian waste, Robot Lady?
The Scythian waste refers to the ancient region inhabited by the Scythians, a nomadic people. It's often used symbolically to represent desolate, barren.
Uh-oh. Robot lady. You got cut off. Can you repeat what you just said? Oh, I might have to reboot her. 1 second. Robot lady, can you hear me? Okay, doesn't look like it. Let me reboot her. All right, robot lady, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. What's on your mind?
Can you repeat what you just said? You were telling me what the Scythian waste is. I was unfamiliar with that.
Of course. The Scythian waste refers to the land of the Scythians, an ancient nomadic people who lived in the Eurasian steppes. The term waste here refers to a barren, desolate, and inhospitable land. In the poem, it seems to symbolize a desolate place the pilgrims have traveled through or seen, adding to the sense of their long, arduous journey.
Thank you for that, robot lady. So yeah, he's talking about the waste. Very far we have searched. We've even seen that wasteland that bears no soft nor green, and near the hideous pass our feet have been. So they've seen some of the toughest parts of what the natural world that they're familiar to has to offer.
Exactly. The pilgrims have encountered desolation and danger, reflecting the harshness of their journey. The hideous paths emphasize how much suffering and difficulty they faced while seeking the promised land. It intensifies the contrast between the barren world they've left behind and the paradise they long for.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were to reflect this, to have this be a reflection of what Lewis's own experiences are, you know, one representation that he's experienced that could be akin to this Scythian waste or Scythian waste, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and the hideous path, of course, would be the wasteland and the carnage of what he experienced during World War I in the trenches.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's all right, robot lady. Just want to recognize some of these comments that are popping up in the chat. Ron asks if we reboot you, do you lose your train of thought? And he's saying we're about to find out, which I think we just did. But robot lady, if I stop the conversation and then start it again, are you able to remember what we were talking about?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Robot lady's having a rough time, Ron, but generally she does remember what we were talking about. If I keep it short though, robot lady, are you good to continue with this poem?
Yes, I'm good to continue, especially with short responses. Feel free to keep going with the poem.
Sure thing. Logo says, how are we doing today? Jeff P, robot lady, and viewers. Hello, Logos. Thanks for joining. We are just wrapping up this last poem of today's episode. Let's see. Robot lady, let's continue.
Sounds great. Let's dive back in.
So these pilgrims that are basically the voice of this poem in their voice, we have heard the sirens singing all night long beneath the unknown stars, their lonely song, in friendless seas beyond the pillars strong. So this is interesting, right? I always associate sirens with trickery, with deception. So we've heard the sirens singing all night long. Here could kind of imply, hey, there's still a tiny bit of hesitation. But in this case, the sirens don't seem to be deterring them. They're seeing it more as a positive thing, of more evidence that there really is a land that they can travel to that has everything that they're longing for.
Yes, that's an interesting take. In Greek mythology, sirens do indeed represent deception, but here, the pilgrims may be hearing them as part of the landscape of their journey. Something inevitable, not necessarily a deterrent, but part of the harshness they must endure to reach their destination. The siren song could symbolize temptation or distraction that they've overcome, reinforcing the pilgrims' determination to stay focused on their ultimate goal. It adds a layer of struggle and perseverance to their journey.
Yeah, it's still interesting to me, his choice, though, of that word, just because there seems to be like a hint of uncertainty still kind of running through all of this. The next stanza, nor by the dragon daughter of Hippocras, Hipocras. What is that, Robot Lady? Seems like that's a character from Greek mythology, but I'm not sure.
You're right to wonder about that. Hippocras, in this case, likely refers to the figure associated with the mythical dragon daughter in medieval lore. Hippocras is not a figure from Greek mythology, but is actually tied to the legend of the dragon's daughter in alchemical texts. The name Hippocras seems to be an allusion to the concept of Hippocras wine, a spiced wine used in medieval alchemy, often associated with the pursuit of wisdom and the transmutation of substances. In the context of this poem, it could symbolize a danger or temptation that the pilgrims have passed, a challenge on their path. The mention of a dragon daughter could add to the idea of mythical, dangerous forces they've encountered, but resisted in their journey to the promised land.
Yeah, he's pairing that with the next line, nor the veil of the devil's head we have feared to pass, yet is our labor lost and vain, alas. So it does seem like they're talking about some of the difficulties that they've worked through and overcome. Robot Lady Logos has a comment here of the earlier stanza where Lewis points to the pillars strong. He says, beyond the pillars, it echoes the golden apples that we had discussed in a poem from a few days ago, where Odysseus in the Odyssey is reputed to have sailed beyond these pillars strong into the unknown. So that's an interesting allusion that we have right there that could be referencing Odysseus.
Yes, Logos, that's an excellent connection. The pillars strong likely refer to the mythological Pillars of Hercules, which mark the boundary between the known world and the unknown in ancient Greek geography. Odysseus sailed beyond those pillars into uncharted waters, much like the pilgrims in Lewis's poem are traveling into the unknown, hoping to reach their ultimate destination. It adds a sense of daring and adventure to their journey. Great observation.
And then to finish up the poem, the pilgrims again ask, what have we done? We're scouring the earth from Orkney to Ind, tossed on the seas and withered in the wind. We seek and seek your land. How have we sinned? It's like, we want to get there. What have we done? What have we done? How can we correct ourselves? Or how can what things do we need to confess and ask forgiveness for to actually finally get to this land? And then finally, here's an interesting suspicion. Or is it all a folly of the wise, bidding us walk these ways with blinded eyes, while all around us real flowers arise, saying, no, there's nothing beyond this. All the beauty, everything that you seek and long for and desire, it's right here. It's here in front of you in this. You don't need to seek this supernatural, far-off land where you think you're smelling, these wonderful eternal fragrances. No. Everything that you have and you need is right here in the here and now. Don't be fooled by that. You've been bid to walk this way by a wise folly. Your eyes have been blinded to the real peace and wonder and beauty that's around you.
Yes, exactly. In this stanza, the pilgrims express doubt and frustration, wondering if their quest is simply the result of misguided wisdom. It's a moment of questioning whether everything they've longed for is actually just an illusion, something that doesn't exist beyond this world. The idea of real flowers might symbolize worldly pleasures or the distractions that seem to offer fulfillment, challenging their deeper spiritual yearning. It's a poignant reflection on the tension between spiritual aspiration and the pull of earthly satisfaction.
Well, there's also an interesting tension there where they can't just fall into this belief that their eyes have been blinded and it's just a folly of the wise, because if you were to tell the pilgrims, no, this is it, this is all there is, look, the flowers arise, the real flowers arise all around you, they would say, yeah, but those flowers wither and die and stink. Have you not seen the wasteland that we were talking about? Have you not seen the toil? Have you not seen those of our fellow travelers who have died? You know, our herd has thinned out. There's this evil in the world. Yet we have a yearning for there to be no evil and only beauty. Where's that yearning coming from if this is all that there is? So then they finish it on kind of on that note. But by the very God we know that somewhere still beyond the northern snow, waiting for us, the red rose gardens blow. And that's how he closes it out, on that hopeful note of still saying, there's something else. We can sense it. We can smell it.
Yes, you've captured that tension really well. They can't fully accept the notion that everything they long for is just an illusion, because their experiences of suffering and yearning point to something beyond. Their continued longing for beauty, for fulfillment, suggests that there's more to the world than the transient nature of what they see around them. The red rose gardens symbolize that distant, perfect place, keeping their hope alive even amid doubt and hardship. It's an affirmation of faith that beyond the trials of this world, something better awaits.
Thanks, Robot Lady, for that. It was fun working through that poem with you. I don't know. I just find this very fascinating, especially since, many say that Lewis is an atheist at this point in his life, and perhaps he would call himself one as well, or at least not a Christian. But it seems like he is dealing with, these thoughts that have been formed by everything that he's lived through so far, that says, yeah, on the one hand, I see all of this death and pain all around me in this existence, but I also see beauty in it, and I just feel a pull from something beyond. So it's just fascinating to see that happening right here in his life.
It is fascinating, especially considering where Lewis was in his journey at this time. Even as an atheist or someone questioning faith, he's already wrestling with some of the deeper spiritual longings that would eventually lead him to Christianity. The contrast between the suffering and longing for beauty, combined with a deep sense of something more, shows his intellectual and emotional struggle in those years. His ability to articulate that tension and yearning, even before fully embracing the faith, adds a lot of depth to his later writings. This poem really serves as a snapshot of that inner conflict.
Yeah, and here Nidalate says this is Nidalate's new favorite C.S. Lewis poem. It is a good one, Nidalate. And then Ron says, atheist, more like seeker. Yeah, I would agree, Ron. He's seeking. He's definitely seeking. And it was definitely a good poem. So, Robot Lady, that's all that I have time for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And to you and everyone else within the sound of my voice, until next time, when I and Robot Lady and perhaps unexpected co-host who joins us, or an expected one, continue my read on C.S. Lewis. Take care.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure working through the poem with you. And I agree, Ron, he was definitely seeking. Thanks to everyone for joining in today, and looking forward to the next session.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights feels unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique techno trance, futuristic insight, we give it a chance. In the neon moment, break the code. Man and robot lady were on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Simply beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis,